All right, so I got a question for you. Who's radicalizing the furries? This doesn't make any sense to me. You guys may have heard the latest news that this guy Thomas Crooks, this was the attempted assassin of President Trump. The guy that I don't know, I can't recall if it was the Secret Service, local police, FBI took out this assassin of President Trump. I don't understand what's happening here. I'm a little frustrated. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I want to know who's radicalizing the furries. Why is it that the furry community, the trans community, I didn't even know what the hell a furry community was before Charlie Kirk's assassination, and now we're finding out that this guy Thomas Crooks is somehow linked to that world. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, I want to know, why did it take an outsider to release some of this information, investigate this information, get some of this information? I suspect, I would expect the Biden administration to withhold information, to withhold evidence, especially if you find out that the guy that tried to kill President Trump is part of your base. What I don't understand is how this information isn't forthcoming under the Trump administration. This drives me nuts. I don't know what's going on. Listen, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino. I tend to lean towards trusting Dan Bongino. Cash Patel. I just don't know if the deep state is so vast that it's consuming them. Because this doesn't make sense to me. I understand that you essentially, these people, I give them a little grace because I'm like, you got to save the world. I realize that they probably got a fire hose down their mouths, so to speak, the moment that they walked into the FBI. Not to mention that God knows a vast majority of the staff within the FBI probably don't want to work with them, have expertise in certain areas where they'll make it more difficult for them to find on information. I don't know, but that's what I suspect. That's why I prefer that the FBI be shut down, in my personal opinion, or neuter them to such a point where all they can do is investigate with local sheriff offices, like Stephen Friend suggested when he's come on to the program. But this is baffling me. Let me give you some of the information to this. So this guy used they them pronouns. How hard was that to find out? He used they them pronouns on some of his social media accounts. Apparently, he had some secret social media accounts. This was, by the way, posted by the New York Post, Miranda Devine. I know many of you have probably heard the story. I'm just going to fill you in on some of the details and, of course, opine and give you my take on the situation, because this makes no sense at all to me. I think I'm the furthest one of the furthest people online from conspiracy theory. But it's frustrating when more and more the so-called conspiracy seems to come true, especially for those of us that are on the right that suspect certain things. However, I wouldn't have gone here. Remember the under the Biden administration. I don't know if it was the DOJ, FBI. I'm not quite sure, but they cremated this guy, and they cremated him quickly as if to get rid of evidence. But the bottom line is, a citizen, basically just a Trump supporter, started doing his own research online, apparently. And this was first revealed on Tucker Carlson's program, just using available research tools. And I'll get into some of the article momentarily, and was able to find out a lot about this guy, including some emails, to be able to find out even more about this guy. So keep in mind, this guy murdered Corey Compatore, a volunteer firefighter in Butler, Pennsylvania. Two other gentlemen were critically injured. Of course, President Trump was shot in the ear, part of his ear shot off. And then we heard nothing. We learned nothing about this guy. The guy was walking around the campus, walking around the event, scoping out the roof. Of course, you had the FBI. I forget the lady's name at the time that was running the FBI, making all types of excuses as to why her FBI didn't go up onto the roof to stake out a position, and why a roof that is literally in the line of sight of the president, and I believe 500 yards or less away from the president, was just totally unguarded for him to be able to walk around on, get a perfect shot off. I mean, it was God's divine grace that Trump literally turned his head at the moment. It's something that was out of character for him to look up at the screen and look at whatever graphs he had up on the screen. That was an act of God. Otherwise, we would have watched his head blown off on live TV. And now we're finding out that they had this information all along, which I suspected, to be quite frank. I'm just shocked that it's taken so long to come out, even under a Republican administration. And I do place a lot of the blame on the Biden administration. I know they were trying to hide stuff and all that kind of stuff. I get it. This guy took a drastic turn to, apparently at one point in time, and I'll go through some of the column, as I mentioned before, this guy was a Trump supporter. I mean, he was a big time Trump supporter. But in a span of 6 to 7 months, this guy went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, abandoned some of his views, some of his right-leaning views, and went totally left. So that leads me to believe, as I get into some of the details of what this guy was participating in, it makes no sense to me that you look at a lot of these shooters recently that have been trans, now in this furries community that we didn't even know about, many of us, until Charlie Kirk was assassinated. What's going on? It makes me wonder, literally, if there's some type of, I don't even know how to explain it. If there's some type of effort by someone in that arena, if you will, to radicalize these people. We already know you have to be mentally ill. I'm sorry if you are a human being and you somehow think you can dress like a animal and you get off on that. There's something wrong with that. That is just, it's just weird. It's not normal. And I understand people can be freaky deaky. That's beyond. That is weird. That is crazy. And we all know it. How is it that so many of these assassins and attempted assassins are trans and now furry? This guy, Thomas Crooks, he was into muscle mommies. Apparently, he had a fetish with big buff chicks, right? So that's what a lot of his searches were for videos of female bodybuilders and buff chicks on YouTube. Apparently, he did that a lot. He liked, or he had 2 accounts on a platform called DeviantArt. That's a site that hosts fans, host fan art, I guess, and popular. And it's also popular for its community of furries. So that site is called DeviantArt. So again, one of the reposts that he reposted on, I believe it was that site, it's this big, tall, just monstrosity of a woman, buff, chiseled, but buff, really tall. And then there's this like wimpy, it's like a cartoonish looking picture, but realistic looking at the same time. And then there's just this wimpy dude in drawers. Just, I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. His digital footprint, according to Miranda Devine of the New York Post, dates back literally a decade. But apparently, there were some signs where he was obsessed with violence, and he had growing an obsession with violence and radical comments, apparently, and then artwork. All this stuff started getting even worse and stronger, much stronger, according to Miranda Devine during the COVID era. Which that in a sense makes sense, because what was happening during COVID, you were obviously you're in Pennsylvania, right? You're under the leadership of, was Josh Shapiro in at that time? I'm sure he was at that time. You're under a lefty, and don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. Josh Shapiro is a lefty too. But if you're under, lockdowns, you're a young guy, you're online, then maybe this is just what he got into. This is crazy. So anyway, I'm just going through some of this column from Miranda Devine. The sources that found this guy or found more information on this guy, according to the New York Post, used publicly available research tools to link multiple email addresses to crooks, and then found usernames associated with those emails on numerous sites. That includes YouTube, Snapchat, PayPal, Discord, chess.com, Quora, and DeviantArt. Guys, I'm telling you, you may not think this matters. I think this matters not only because we need to seek justice and we need to get to the bottom of this, but I believe stuff like this could hurt Trump's reputation. This is an issue that should be totally transparent. And I don't put this on him necessarily. I mean, this is the guy that tried to kill him. But I'm just wondering, this doesn't make sense that a citizen journalist or somebody's that's just a Trump supporter can go out and investigate this. And it's 9-10 months into the Trump administration, and we haven't heard anything from his FBI. I'm sorry, that's insane. Get answers for your base. Be transparent. We'll be back. Hey guys, Carl Jackson here for MyPillow. A major retail chain just canceled a massive order, leaving MyPillow with an overstock of classic MyPillows. Now it's your game. For a limited time, MyPillow is offering their entire classic collection at true wholesale prices. You get the standard MyPillow for just $17.98. If you want more, upgrade to queen size for only $22.98 or king size for $24.98. Snag body pillows for just $29.98. And versatile multi-use pillows for just $9.98. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Carl, that is CARL, or call 800-858-0263. All right. Plus, when you order totals $75 or more, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts, no strings attached. That's right. Premium pillows at unbeatable prices and bonus gifts to top it all off. Don't wait. Head to mypillow.com right now or call 800-858-0263. And don't forget to use the promo code Carl, CARL, to grab your standard MyPillow for just $17.98. That is insane. Can't beat that with a bat. All right, welcome back. Again, you're listening to The Carl Jackson Show. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Please subscribe to my podcast, por favor, wherever you go to get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble, The Carl Jackson Show. Social media, all things social media, at Carl Jackson Show, at The Carl Jackson Show is where you can go to find me. Let me just segue, and then I want to come right back to this shooter. Transparency is so important. Now, President Trump is out, and I'm glad he's done it. He's like, listen, just open up all the files, open up all the Epstein files. There's been a back and forth with he and Marjorie Taylor Greene. You guys know that just recently I put out a podcast called Marxist Taylor Greene. I'm not down to call her a traitor, but it's obvious, and it's obvious. And the rumors are, you heard Scott Jennings talking about it. We'll play that clip for you in a later podcast. That I'll be talking about this stuff, but it's the whole stuff with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I when it comes to the Epstein stuff, Trump has to understand what the left is trying to do with him. They have nothing. He knows they have nothing. He's frustrated, and in a sense, he's wounded. If you think about it, I mean, he spent his entire first presidency defending himself against complete and utter nonsense, just made up stuff. The Russia collusion hoax. Oh, and speaking of the Russia collusion hoax, let's get cut number 7. Because we all know that Obama was into this, right? We all know that Obama essentially had this nonsense from Hillary Clinton, who initially used this Russia collusion hoax to try to defeat President Trump in the 2016 election. Obama keeps this investigation going just to undermine the incoming presidency. The guy is completely and utterly scandalous. But President Trump, in my opinion, he's, what do you call that? Maybe some PTSD from his first administration. So he understands wholeheartedly how far the left will go. This is what I love about him. That's why he has a backbone of steel. He understands how far the left will go. In my opinion, this Epstein stuff was inevitable. I don't think he could fight against it. Whether you want to blame Marjorie Taylor Greene, I've got my own issues with Marjorie Taylor Greene, strictly based upon policy and based upon the fact it looks like she's doing some insider trading. I don't wish harm on her. I just want a conservative in her seat. All right. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that for me. But when it comes to the Epstein stuff, this is stuff that too many people are frustrated with. They want transparency. And I almost think President Trump, when Democrats throw stuff like at him like this, he's got to, hey, right away, let's get this done. This is fake. He's got to come out to the media. This is fake. This is a fake story. Like he did, let's go through all of this stuff. Let's go through, just put everything out there. I am innocent. Call it a day. Because if he weren't, they would have had the dirt on him when he was running for the White House. They would have unleashed it, but they didn't have it. So transparency is going to be extremely important. This is what he's up against. Let's play cut number 7, please, Kate.
Fox News alert, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing. And only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama. There were 4 key elements from the assessment that were repeated over and over again and formed the basis of the Russia hoax and the Robert Mueller witch hunt. 1, that Vladimir Putin wanted Donald Trump to win. 2, Putin took action to help Trump win. 3, the Russians had blackmail on Trump. That was the Steele dossier. And 4, that the Russians tried colluding with the Trump campaign. None of any of this was ever true. There was no reliable intelligence to support any of these allegations. Senior CIA officials repeatedly refused to traffic in these allegations, but they were repeatedly overruled by CIA Director Brennan and FBI Director Comey, who insisted that they be pushed, even without verifiable evidence.
Let's hold it there. I mean, you get the message. And this, for those of you that pay attention to politics as much as I do, you knew about this story, right? I mean, it's absolutely insane, but this is what the president is up against. It is important that the president does not waste any time with distractions. I am convinced, this is just me speaking, this is just my opinion. It doesn't make sense to me that information about this shooter would just start trickling out. Doesn't make sense to me that Trump's FBI wouldn't put this information out. I expect it from Biden's administration, from Biden's FBI, not from Trump's. The only thing I could conclude is that they've just got too many deep staters that are still inside of these agencies. And they are trying their best to wait this president out. They want this man gone. This is why you got to get rid of this deep state. This is why you can't waste time with distractions. This is why the Epstein thing, frankly, I think Trump should have, when he initially said, listen, just looking at everything, make sure they put everything out. Get it behind you so that you can focus on the economy, turning around this economy. Because if the economy isn't in good shape within the next several months, this is what's going to happen to Trump again. I'm Let's just be honest about this. Now, let's return to this guy that apparently was at least associated with the furry community. This New York Post column goes on. The sources use publicly available research tools. Again, just to circle back, if you will, I was talking about how a citizen journalist or just a Trump supporter started doing research that was available online to find this information out. Use publicly available research tools to link multiple email addresses to crooks, and then found usernames associated with the emails on numerous sites that included YouTube, Snapchat, PayPal, Discord, chess.com, Quora, and DeviantArt. The FBI, I'll skip that part. His early online presence when he would have been in high school was almost exclusively pro-Trump. While he was almost while he also made a number of violently anti-Semitic comments and racist remarks about Hispanic immigrants. He said, and I quote, "I always believed being patriotic was lining up a bunch of socialist Jews like the ones that booed Trump and blasting their useless brains out with an AR." So there's no doubt this kid, in my opinion, was probably already troubled or violent. The YouTube account featuring Crook's full name posted in the comments under a clip of Trump being booed during the 2019 World Series in D.C. He says every one of the Trump-hating Democrats deserve to have their heads chopped off and put on stakes for the world to see what happens when you F with America. And his spelling, obviously, he uses foul language, and his spelling is not great at all as well. He also described in detail how he would use an assault rifle against a crowd of political opponents, frequently quoting the line, "The only true political power comes from the barrel of a gun." That's from Mao Zedong, a communist. So that's really weird. Crooks made violent threats against the Democratic members of the squad. He says, quote, "I hope a quick, painful death to all the deplorable immigrants and anti-Trump congresswomen who don't deserve anything this country has given them." He wrote that in 2019, but in 2020, amid the COVID pandemic, he appeared to make a 180 turn, writing just 6 to 7 months later, "I'm pretty sure people are just racist, and Trump is one of them. There does not need to be a deep state for that." That's in 6 to 7 months. And some of the art that he posted on this deviant art stuff, besides his fetish with big buff women, all of it is violent. All of it is graphic. I mean, it's cartoonish, but it's of someone getting murdered, violent, so on, etc. So I'm just wondering what happened in that short span of time, 6 to 7 months. Sound like he was already cray-cray and on the edge of violence. But when he goes into apparently this community, this deviant art, and then a furry community online, this guy almost kills the future president of the United States of America.